Apriorian Apologetics Conceptualized. Apriorian Apologetics reconceptualizes what it means to be a Christian. We make three claims. There are solutions to every known social problem. All solutions are consistent with and derived from Scripture. Every solution can be verified and validated using the methods of science. These three claims are elaborated and expanded in three affirmations. These develop and further conceptualizes the position of Apriorian apologetics. The Bible is a handbook containing explicit and implicit solutions to all social problems. The solutions constitute or are applied as part of an experiment that demonstrates, using the methodology of science, that a quantifiable way exists to validates the Bible and its solutions, compared to the conventional methodologies. The experimental proof of the claims manifests as a utopia, a perfect church which is the test group, devoid of the 10 great evils which will become more prevalent in the control group: unemployment, debt, poverty, inflation, pollution, waste, taxation, homelessness, war, and injustice will increase. Apriorian does not claim to be able to eliminate sin, so crime will continue to be an issue, but at a much reduced rate and with a better, that is, more just, response. To be clear, it is postulated that there are two paradigms or algorithms that man can implement. One is the conventional methods normally employed and referred to as the liberal conception. The other is the conceptualist mode of thinking. There are, we postulate, in this thing we call reality, actually two modes of thought, or two kinds of reality streams. These are the conventional linear mode of thought in which causality predominates and in which everything is related and relative, but there is another option and way of thinking, which comprises a distinct reality, and this reality is absolutist and logical and indeed, conceptual. This second mentality understands the relativist conception but sees information as logical and analytical and truth as something we deduce, not as the products of sense impressions. Anyone who believes in God subscribes to the second universe, or mode of understanding. Atheists are trapped in the first conception. But few if any Christians are reborn into the second conception of reality, though they glimpse it darkly from afar. The two-reality hypothesis is a different conceptualization or a different way of thinking. We are, in this conceptualization, a race set apart. The true believer is a servant set apart, which makes us a different race than those of the flesh. We live in the Spirit. We are born in the flesh. We must be reborn into this new and distinct reality of the Spirit. The flesh is the reality of materiality which we discover by means of our senses. This is a strange and unnatural world that defines logical explanation or, in fact, conceptualization. All we see and know in this reality is what our five senses tell us. But this is a contradictory and incoherent narrative. Our physical senses merely send electrical signals to the brain, using nerves and neurons and synapses. But none of this is there in some hypothesized physical world, because it is all in the mind and the mind is not physical. What did the senses respond to, that is not in the mind? The sense of touch is a mental event, as is the sense of smell, sight, sound and taste. How does the brain correlate smell so that all brains register the same impact and produce identical sensations for a particular smell stimulus? How do we even know there are other people out there as this hypothesized physical realm? How do we know we all smell the same thing the same way at the same time? How do we calibrate our experiences? Our brains are constrained by logic. Why is that? We cannot think of things that do not have the ability to exist. But this inability to exist is the ability to constrain or disallow contradictions. So, the constraint or restriction is a logical constraint. A hot and heavy thing is possible. A weightless, infinite mass is not. But all we are thinking about is words, and logically meanings cannot cancel each other out and still retain meaning. We cannot juxtapose contrary terms because information has to be communicated and contrary ideas cannot be it. They fail to meet the basic criteria of what information is. What is contradictory, therefore, cannot be conceptualized, and if not conceptualized cannot be realized as information, and certainly not as a fundamental truth. Contrary ideas cannot be communicated. Matthew 25:14-30 For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants, and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2, he also gained other 2. But he that had received 1 went and digged in the earth, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants cometh, and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliveredst unto me 5 talents, behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant, thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make thee ruler over many things, enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliveredst unto me 2 talents, behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant, thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make thee ruler over many things, enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew thee that thou art an hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed, and I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth, lo, there thou hast that is thine. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gather where I have not strawed, thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received mine own with usury. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance, but from him that hath not shall be taken away. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness, there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now this is a well-known and simple story, but it is incoherent if linked with everything Christians say about salvation, namely that we are saved by faith, not works, lest any man should boast. If this means what we think it means, what meaning has a true and faithful servant? Christians have conceptualized faith as a one-dimensional spirit. The saved have a sanctified switch flicked by God and is saved. One moment we are a 0 and the next a 1. We do not choose to be saved and we do not work to be saved, but we flick no switch and God is not a God of disorder. God does not play dice and God does not randomly pick those who will end up in heaven. He certainly does not consign people to eternal damnation irrespective of their history. Works do not save as works are an extension of the legal mindset. This is actually part of the flesh, or the idea we have power to accomplish all we need to do. The legalist thinks that with some attention to what one is doing, one can work themselves out of damnation. There are all kinds of rights and activities a legalist needs to do to be saved. The details are unimportant. It is all part of witchcraft, and the idea humans can do certain things that will cause the future to change. Sometimes it is incantations and potions and other times symbols and rites or sacraments. Man does not have spiritual authority over reality. It is true reality is composed of information, but we do not get to choose what is true, and therefore, we do not get to choose what can be transmitted. What is more important, we do not get to choose what we can conceive, because conceive precedes conceptualization. Conceptualization is the imagery created, but we need to generate the conception and this is where we conceive something. But to conceive it, it has to be true. This truth is not what our senses say, it is what God says. Truth reflects the wisdom of God. This is logical and analytical. We might see a white policeman kill a black man and call it racism. But all this thought has to be channeled through concepts and these ideas need to cohere. This is where the history of the black man emerges and the events that preceded the shooting are revealed. But the reality of some people will not give way to the truth. The proposition is that all white folks are victims, and this is the proposition that many seek to validate each and every day of their lives. But the conception of police has nothing to do with racism, and the conception of a black man has nothing to do with victim, and so the bigot attempts to conceive of a reality that is composed of insubstantial images. Thus, they turn dumb because they cannot see what their minds try and fashion. Truth is composed of clear and distinct ideas. 2 + 2 = 4 is simple and clear to all. Black man as victim is not a coherent vision. It is inherently unstable because it contains non-victim content. Apriorian apologetics is a new kind of business that explains, justifies and validates Scripture by example. Our product is faith and our tools are coherence. Coherence induces specialization and this generates separation as a path to clarity, both of purpose and vision. If you are interested in a business that cannot fail, that proves beyond any reasonable doubt Scripture is of God, while eliminating the 10 great evils of unemployment, debt, poverty, inflation, pollution, waste, taxation, homelessness, war, and injustice, then consider Apriorianism, or what is known as syndicated ownership.